Last year's release of Remus Repeal Reserve was the oldest release yet, so that begs the question, is older always better? Let's find out. Hello everyone and welcome to Bourbon Bites. My name is Clifton and today I'm reviewing the brand new 2022 release of Remus Repeal Reserve Batch 6. This is brand new for September 2022. I got it a couple days early to give you guys a review and my honest opinion of this whiskey. Big thank you to the folks at Ross & Squibb, or you guys may know them as the Remus Distillery, which is their previous name, basically MGP out of Indiana. So last year's release, Batch 5, actually made my top 10 whiskeys of 2021, so this one has a big reputation to stand up to. As I mentioned in the intro, last year's was the oldest release yet. It combined some 14 to 16-year-old bourbon. This year, we're lowering the bar on the age, but we're actually upping the price a bit. So this one comes in at $100 MSRP and ranges from 8 to 14 years old. Now, I'll put a chart up here of the breakdown of what's in here, but basically this one averages around 8 to 10 years old, with 2% of a 14-year-old just for good measure. So that begs the question, will this whiskey stand up to its older brother? Let's go ahead and give it a nose and find out. First of all, can we mention how beautiful the color of this whiskey is? I mean, it just looks like a very, very well-aged bourbon. As with all Remus Repeal Reserves, this one comes in at 100 proof, and it is a batch, so it's not a single barrel, it is batched. These are released each year in September to celebrate National Bourbon Heritage Month, which is one of my favorite months of the year. Last year I did a really fun thing on Instagram where I paired different whiskeys with different video games for the entire month of September. Had a ton of fun with it. It was a lot of work, so go check out last year's post. I don't know if I'm gonna do it again this year, but if you guys like them, you know what, maybe I will. Well, I will say on the nose, this does not smell like a young bourbon, and we're not talking young bourbon here. We're talking 8 to 14 years old, which when it comes to Indiana bourbon, that stuff sells for a lot of money, especially the single barrels at cask strength. So we're talking about some really quality bourbon here. There's also like an effervescence there. Like I'm getting like a bit of like a cola or even root beer on the nose. But the weird thing is it's not super sweet. It's not like the caramel, like vanilla like you typically get. I think maybe it's more of a savory note. I mean, I'm almost thinking like a barbecue sauce even. But on the back end, there is a little bit of like a burnt sugar, kind of like a creme brulee topping. But it's still more of like a cane sugar than like the caramelized sugar that you get like in a creme brulee. But let's go and give it a taste. Cheers. So on the palate, this kind of gives me some sense of nostalgia, and I think it's kind of reminiscent of like an old like attic or even an old library. It has that vintage note to it. I mean, again, this is pretty relatively old bourbon for Indiana. There's a bit of leather, a little bit of tobacco, but it's definitely leaning more leather, more like library note. I will say it's quite a bit sweeter on the palate than on the nose, but it's not like a caramelized sugar. It's more of a crystallized sugar, kind of like a rock candy. Did you guys eat rock candy when you were kids? I love that stuff. And interestingly enough, this is not as spicy as I'm used to as other Remus releases, especially ones that have that high rye mash bill. This one's quite a bit softer and really has a light body overall. And even though I do say it does have those vintage notes, I feel like it's missing some of those richer oaky notes that I've come to love about the Remus line. Maybe towards the finish, but it's definitely not up front. The finish is medium length, I would say. Not super long, but again, not very short. It is 100 proof, so it's a little longer than average. That's what he said. And I know you guys are wondering, how does this compare to last year's release? How does it compare to all of the Remuses I've tried? Last year I did a live stream where I compared batches 3, 4, and 5, and it was a ton of fun. So I actually still have all 3 of those. So if you guys want to see me put batch 6 into the ring and do another live stream where I taste through all 4 releases blind, let me know in the comments below, because I do want to give it an honest opinion, comparatively. I don't want to say, oh, it's as good or, not as good as last year until I've tried it blind back to back. So if y'all want to see that, leave me a like down below and make sure to leave a comment letting me know that's something you're interested in. So if you're new here, my rating system is out of 8 because I love all things 8-bit, and with this Remus Repeal Reserve Batch 6, I have to take in consideration it is $100 MSRP, age range is 8 to 14, leaning heavily towards the 8 to 10 year range. The 2022 release gets a 6 out of 8 for me. Now don't get me wrong, this is still a really great bourbon. It's a great expression of what can come out of Indiana. It blends all of these elements together really well, especially the vintage note and the sweeter corn. It's just an overall balanced bourbon. The only thing that's really hurting it is the price point. You know, I don't even have an issue with the age. Even though this is a bit younger than last year's release, I've had so many great, 8 to 12-year-old bourbons, significantly cheaper, that have just been amazing. So I think that's where the hang-up is. It's a very pricey bourbon. It's poised as like a limited edition bourbon, and in some ways it is. But when you consider, the competition, this doesn't quite hit the mark for me, at least trying it on its own. Again, once I try it in a blind flight, if you guys want to see that, I might completely change my mind. So this is my impression as of now. But if you are a fan of other Repeal Reserve releases, this is still going to be up your alley. It's still a similar flavor profile. It's still just as balanced. It just kind of leans towards some of the softer notes compared to some of the rich oaky ones that I've loved about previous releases. But on its own, when you're not comparing it to others, it's still a really solid bourbon. It's a bit pricey for the value you're getting. So as of recording this video, I believe I'm the only whiskey tuber who's reviewed batch 6. So I'm really curious to see whether other people agree, or maybe they think this is the best Remus Repeal batch ever. I'm also curious if you've tried it. So if you've tried batch 6, let me know what you think. Like I said, I have no one to talk to about this, so I really appreciate your comments. Before I go, I want to give a huge shout out to my patrons who make all of this possible. Y'all mean the world to me. If you do want to support the channel, you can do so for as little as $2 a month, patreon.com/bourbonbites. Of course, the higher tiers get you access to some fun hangouts and a sample set that I send out every month. So if you're interested, check out the description. I have a link to it there. But most of all, thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button on the way out. But until next time, this has been Bourbon Bites. Cheers, and I'll see you next video.